heaven, the 18 levels of hell, Elysium, Nirvana. These are the kinds of places people often speak of after someone passes away. Whether through the lens of religion, mythology, or philosophy, all are human attempts to explain the greatest mystery of all. What happens after we die? But there's a question even more rarely asked. What happens during the first 31 days after death? Not eternity, not reincarnation, but a transitional phase, a journey the soul begins that few have ever seen or dared to speak about. And strangely, this 31-day journey doesn't belong to just one culture. From the Egyptian Book of the Dead, Tibet's Bardo Thodol, to the sacred rites of African tribes and the cryptic pages of lost alchemical manuscripts, many ancient traditions quietly point to a 31-day cycle, a period where the soul is not instantly judged, but moves through stages of transformation, release, and choice. Then came the rediscovery of a long-lost manuscript, rumored to have been burned because it was considered too dangerous. It describes, day by day, exactly what happens after you take your final breath. If you believe death is the end of the story, you might want to think again. In today's video, we're opening the door to the forbidden, the mysterious book that reveals the first 31 days after your death and why it was hidden from humanity for centuries. So, before we continue with the video and explore this interesting topic further, don't forget to like, subscribe to the Top Hidden Knowledge channel to stay updated on everything related to personal and spiritual growth. This helps us bring more content that can make a difference for you. The manuscript in question, shrouded in mystery, suggests that these 31 days are a universal stage. It doesn't matter the creed, the name of the god, or the doctrine. There is a path the soul follows, marked by distinct phases, from denial to expansion, from pain to liberation. And the way we live here deeply influences how that process unfolds. But why would this book have been hidden? Why would anyone try to prevent this information from coming to light? Perhaps because knowing the afterlife would force us to live more consciously now. Perhaps because understanding death isn't an end, but a powerful beginning. No one knows for sure who wrote the manuscript. What we have are fragments, legends, accounts lost in torn pages of old diaries, and muffled whispers among monks. What is agreed upon among the few who claim to have seen it is this: the book is not ordinary. The most well-known story says that the manuscript was discovered by chance in the 17th century by a group of Benedictine monks restoring an abbey in the mountains of southern France. Inside a hollow wall, wrapped in linen cloth and sealed with symbols mixing Greek, Hebrew, and an as-yet undeciphered language, was a set of aged pages written in red and black ink. The content frightened the monks. It clearly spoke about the 31 days after death, in a language mixing poetry, ritual instruction, and vivid descriptions of out-of-body experiences. But that's not the only origin story told. Some claim the book was channeled by an English medium in the 19th century during a series of spiritual trances. He said he heard voices coming from the threshold between worlds, dictating step by step what happened to the soul after death. Curiously, the descriptions matched parts of the text found by the monks, despite being separated by centuries and continents. Another theory points to a mythical civilization predating Sumer, vanished, without a trace except for fragments of wisdom preserved in esoteric orders. It is believed this civilization understood the cycle of life and death as part of an educational process for the soul, and that the 31 days were a kind of final stage of learning before the spirit moved on or returned. But why is it called the Forbidden Book? Not because it contains dark magic or dangerous invocations, but because it reveals what many systems of spiritual control don't want you to know. That the soul is free, that there is choice after death, that consciousness continues, and that what we do now not only builds our destiny in life, but also the path we will have to walk afterward. Some versions of the manuscript were burned, others disappeared in mysterious fires. There are rumors that a complete copy is kept in a vault in the Vatican. What the book teaches echoes through various spiritual traditions and in accounts of people who have been to the other side and returned. What if it's right? If you stay, with me we'll discover day by day what happens after the last breath. Because the next step is day one, the separation from the body. Death isn't a light switch. It doesn't just flip off in an instant. It begins in a moment, yes. But what follows is a layered, mysterious unraveling. It's as if the soul, tethered to the physical world for so long, must slowly loosen its grip on matter step by step. And the first day, day one, is where this profound transformation truly begins. That day is marked by one of the most delicate, surreal events in the entire process: the separation from the body. In spiritual and esoteric traditions, this moment is described with reverence and awe. There is something called the silver cord, an invisible energy thread that connects the soul to the physical vessel. It's mentioned in ancient texts, like Ecclesiastes in the Bible, and repeatedly appears in near-death experiences. This cord vibrates with life. It pulses, resists, and finally, depending on a person's energy and state of being, it breaks. Sometimes it snaps with a sudden jolt. Other times it gently dissolves like mist in the morning sun. And then, for the very first time, the soul sees itself outside the body. This moment is often described as a strange kind of liberation. There's immediate relief. No more physical pain, no more limitations of the flesh. The soul is weightless, limitless, and free. But not everything is peaceful just yet. There's confusion. The soul sees its body lying still. It sees loved ones, gathered, crying, calling out, trying to resuscitate it. And it tries to respond. It tries to speak, scream, reach out. But its hands pass through the air, and its voice goes unheard. This is often a moment of denial. The mind, so deeply conditioned to identify with the body, refuses to accept the truth. I can't be dead, it thinks. This can't be real. Many don't even realize they've passed. They linger, confused and frightened, clinging to a reality that's no longer theirs. It's a moment of incredible vulnerability. Yet, according to spiritual accounts from various cultures and faiths, the soul is not alone. Even if it doesn't see or feel them, one or more spiritual guides are almost always present. They are calm, patient, and loving. They do not push. They wait. They protect. They gently hold space for the soul's realization to unfold. If the death was sudden or traumatic, like an accident or violent end, the soul may resist leaving. There may be fear, panic, or overwhelming sorrow. But in cases where death comes, after long illness, old age, or for those who've cultivated deep spiritual awareness, the transition tends to be far more serene. There's acceptance, there's peace. The letting go is natural, like drifting into sleep after a long, full day. This first day is not just the end of life, it's the beginning of a new journey. The soul is disconnected, but not yet directed. It knows it's free, but doesn't know where to go. It's like standing on the threshold between two dimensions, one foot still on earth, the other already stepping into something vast and unnamed. And from here, the true spiritual journey begins. Because this moment, though unseen, is one we are all moving toward. And how we live now shapes how we will die, and more importantly, how we will transition. A life filled with fear, regret, or obsessive attachment to the body and material. Possessions creates weight that's hard to shed. It clings to the soul and complicates the departure. But a life lived with presence, purpose, and spiritual awareness allows for a gentler crossing. It's not about avoiding death. It's about preparing for it with grace. In the end, death isn't the opposite of life. It's part of it. And the more we understand it, the more fully we can live. If the first day is marked by the separation from the body, days 2 to 4 are dominated by a more subtle but even deeper whirlwind, the awareness that one has died. It seems obvious, but for the newly freed soul, it isn't. At this stage, the soul still carries the memory of matter. It feels alive. It can walk, observe, think, recall. But something is off. People don't hear it. Animals don't notice it. Words don't come out. The world, once solid, now seems made of mist, and it's at this point that reality starts to sink in. The recognition of death isn't immediate. In many cases, it comes in waves. First a suspicion, then a certainty. The soul realizes it's in what we call the lower astral plane, a kind of energetic copy of the physical world where emotions still vibrate intensely. In this plane, the soul often remains close to the environments and people it knew in life. It tries to warn loved ones, tries to touch objects, tries to go back home. Some, in desperation, watch their own funeral. They see their bodies being buried, ears being sealed forever, and feel a pain that is no longer physical but emotional, deep. Many do not accept it. They try to reverse the situation. They scream, run, beg. Others enter a state of numbness, refusing to accept reality. The soul may relive the last moments of life over and over, as if the mind were desperately trying to find a mistake that could be undone. This can last for days or more. But there are those who, even amidst the confusion, begin to notice presences, subtle silhouettes, lights in the background, whispers coming from another dimension. These are the spiritual guides who wait for the right moment to approach when the soul is ready to listen. During this period, prayers, elevated thoughts, and rituals performed by the living have great impact. They create bridges of light between the worlds, facilitating the spirit's awakening. That's why so many cultures maintain rites during the first 3 days, not by chance. Between the 5th and 7th day, the soul enters one of the most impactful and transformative moments, the encounter with itself. Nothing external, no judges, no furious gods or condemning demons. Here, judgment comes from within. This process is described in the manuscript as the vision of reflected truth, more commonly known in many traditions as the life review. The soul relives important scenes, but not in the linear way we remember in life. It feels again everything it caused in itself and in others. Every word spoken in anger, every act of love ignored, every small kindness forgotten. It all comes back, not as memory, but as direct experience. It's as if the soul wears the skin of those it hurt and also of those it helped. It feels the echo of every action, every omission. Time loses shape. Every moment lived resurfaces with overwhelming clarity. This judgment is not meant to punish. It reveals. It is a brutal and liberating way to become aware of what one truly is. The soul sees the patterns it repeated, the fears that guided it, the loves it didn't live out of pride, the decisions driven by guilt. It also sees the gestures of light, the triumphs, the moments it chose good, even in silence. It's a mirror that doesn't lie. At this stage, there are 2 common reactions: self-accusation or acceptance. Some spirits sink into guilt, refusing to move on. Others, even in the face of their mistakes, manage to see everything with compassion, understanding the learning. The difference lies in how the soul lived. The more awareness in life, the more maturity to deal with the truth after death. In certain cases, spiritual beings act as facilitators, helping the soul understand that this judgment is not a condemnation, but a chance for integration, an essential step toward liberation. In practice, this stage has a profound effect. It determines whether the soul will cling to the past or move on to the next phase with more lightness. Reliving mistakes can trap it in dense zones, but forgiveness of self and others allows it to continue the journey toward higher planes. Next comes the most challenging moment: crossing the threshold. After the inner judgment, the soul is no longer the same. Something within it has broken, self-deception. And with that, it finds itself before an invisible portal, a vibrational boundary that separates the world of denser attachments from the journey toward elevation. This moment, known in many spiritual traditions as the threshold, is one of the most delicate and feared points of the post-death journey. The threshold is not a place in the physical sense. It is a vibrational state, an intermediate zone where everything the soul still carries, unresolved, unforgiven, or misunderstood, manifests. Fears take form, guilt becomes incessant echoes, poorly processed thoughts gain weight. The soul feels in its subtle skin everything it failed to heal in life. The manuscript describes the threshold as a territory of emotional density. It's like crossing a valley made of shadows that are not external but fragments of the soul itself. Some spirits see labyrinths, others hear voices from the past or face illusions trying to trap them there. Memories, addictions, temptations, people who symbolize pain. It is also the point where, according to the text, the presence of spiritual guides begins to intensify, but not as saviors, rather as silent companions. They cannot cross the threshold for the soul. Only the soul can do that. Free will remains the supreme law, even after death. But there is an essential detail. The threshold is not a punishment. It's a passage, a kind of natural purification, like heat dissolving the soul's old layer, preparing it for the next level of consciousness. Those who refuse to cross out of fear, denial, or attachment end up wandering there for an indefinite time, repeating thoughts, reliving traumas. This is what some traditions call trapped spirits. On the other hand, souls that cultivated self-knowledge, meditation, compassion, and forgiveness in life cross the threshold more fluidly, not without pain, but with clarity. They understand that the suffering there is not punishment, but a reflection that can be transmuted. Some cultures symbolize this crossing as a river, like the Styx in Greek mythology, or as a bridge, as in the Muslim tradition. The manuscript suggests that each soul perceives the threshold according to its beliefs and experiences. In other words, you create the crossing based on how you lived. The practical takeaway is brutally clear. Don't wait until death to face your shadows. Do it now. Every trauma healed in life is one less stone on the threshold's path. After the intensity of the threshold, the soul begins to pass through a lighter mist. Traces of what was still linger, but now there's something new in the air. Presences, subtly familiar, ancient, known. Days 11 to 13 mark a reunion that many traditions describe as sacred. The contact with the ancestors, spirits from the family lineage, ancient spiritual guides, or souls with whom one shared deep bonds over multiple lifetimes draw near. And they don't come to judge. They come to embrace. The soul, still fragile after the crossing, is received with a warmth that words can't explain. It's not just a reunion with grandparents or deceased relatives. It's a vibrational recognition, a frequency from soul to soul, as if, after all the strangeness, it begins to remember who it is. In some descriptions, the ancestors appear in human form, in others as luminous, archetypal, almost symbolic presences. They represent not only the blood family but also the spiritual lineage, which may include masters, healers, priests, or warriors who were part of the soul's mission in other eras. This part of the journey is also deeply healing. Many souls at this moment are given the chance to reconcile bonds with parents, children, partners from other lives. Unspoken truths, interrupted loves, inherited guilt, all of it may surface, but now in an environment of higher understanding. And there's more. This encounter isn't just emotional, it's directional. The ancestors bring wisdom, they show paths, they point to the next phase. They help the soul understand the spiritual inheritance it carries and what it needs to leave behind. It's here that many souls realize they belong to something greater than their individual story. The book emphasizes that this reunion is only possible when the soul reaches a minimum level of emotional balance and detachment, achieved in the previous days. If the soul is still too attached to matter or dominated by guilt from the inner judgment, it may not perceive the ancestors or may mistake them for mental projections. After the tender reunion with ancestors, an embrace often described as overwhelmingly comforting and filled with light, the soul reaches a pivotal moment in its post-death journey. There is no longer confusion, no denial. By now, the truth is crystal clear. It has died. The physical world has been left behind. What lies ahead is no longer a question of if, but where. Between days 14 and 16, the soul arrives at a crossroads. And here, for the first time, it is capable of making a profound decision. Where do I go next? But this is not a decision made with words or logic. It's a choice made with vibration. The frequency the soul now carries, shaped by every action, intention, thought, and emotion it held in life. The soul doesn't speak its destination. It resonates with it. And what it resonates with becomes the path it walks. Typically, 3 paths present themselves at this point. The higher planes. For those souls who have expanded their consciousness, cultivated wisdom, and released the attachments of earthly life. This path is luminous, subtle, and serene. It is a return to a realm of light where further growth and service await. Immediate reincarnation, chosen by souls who feel a strong pull back to earth. Perhaps they left behind unfinished lessons, urgent karmic ties, or unresolved relationships. Some are still too anchored to material life to move on, and so they return quickly, stepping into a new body to continue their evolution. Attachment to matter, the most complex and often painful state. These are souls who hesitate. They cannot let go. They linger near the physical world, sometimes out of fear, addiction, guilt, or overpowering emotional bonds. They may become wandering or obsessive spirits, lost between worlds, feeding on the lower vibrations of the living. What makes this moment so powerful and so haunting is that the soul still retains free will. Even after death, nothing is imposed. There is no divine hand forcing a destination. There is guidance, yes. There is resonance. But ultimately the soul chooses. It can resist. It can ask for help. It can surrender. It can cling. Everything depends on the level of consciousness it developed while alive. If, during life, it learned to be present, to look within, to pause, reflect, forgive, and connect with something greater than itself, then this decision comes from a place of clarity. The soul moves forward with trust. But if life was lived in a blur, chasing external validation, lost in distractions, buried in anger or regret, then this choice can become clouded. The soul may feel pulled in multiple directions. It may freeze. It may even refuse to move. This moment is the mirror of who we truly are. Not the masks we wore, not the roles we played, not our careers or accomplishments, but the naked soul. It's easy to think that death is the end, but in reality, it's a magnifying glass. It reveals everything we've become. Not what we pretended to be, but what we are at the core. And so, the message for the living is clear. How we live matters, not in some abstract moralistic way, but in deeply practical terms. The more present, conscious, and aligned we are in life, the more empowered we are in death. This choice, this great turning point, awaits us all. And when it comes, it won't be made with words. It will be made with the truth of our vibration. After choosing or hesitating before the choice, the soul doesn't depart immediately. It must revisit the life it left behind. This is the moment of deep emotional detachment, and it happens in what is called the plane of memories. During days 17 to 20, the soul is guided, often by its guides or by its own awakened consciousness, through places, people, and meaningful experiences that marked its journey on Earth. It visits its former home, silently observes loved ones, sees places from its childhood, loves that will not return, wounds that never fully healed. But here, unlike the inner judgment of days 5 to 7, the experience is not about right or wrong, it's about letting go. The soul sees, feels, but now begins to understand that it no longer belongs to it. It's like walking inside an old dream. Beautiful memories may bring tears, painful ones may finally be accepted. The soul begins to emotionally disconnect from the earth. In this plane, everything has an almost ethereal quality. The places are not solid. They are like projections made of energy and memory. The soul realizes that much of what it carried with such heaviness was illusion. Matter, conflicts, social fears, titles, money, none of that can be taken. What remains is what was lived with truth. In some descriptions, this stage is compared to a final walk through life, but with new eyes. The soul feels lighter with each released memory, each attachment dissolved. When it can let go of everything, honestly, without clinging, without resistance, it begins to feel an indescribable lightness, a silent expansion. It's as if a door within it finally opens to something greater. However, when there are very strong attachments, such as young children, obsessive loves, or unresolved feelings, the soul can become stuck in this plane. It revisits the same scenarios repeatedly, trying to interfere, influence, maintain presence, and this prevents it from moving forward. That's why so many spiritual farewell rituals are performed during this phase, to help the soul understand that its time in that life has ended. After the emotional detachment experienced in the plane of memories, the soul begins to experience something entirely new, the expansion of consciousness. And it is here that it enters the realm of consciousness, a dimension where time ceases to exist as we know it, and everything vibrates in pure understanding. During days 21 to 24, the soul no longer revisits what was, it integrates. It's as if all the parts fragmented by pain, fear, ego, illusion, and conditioning begin to come together again. Consciousness stops being a narrative of the self and becomes vision. The soul understands why it lived what it lived, why it suffered, why it chose certain paths. In this plane, there is no longer an external setting like houses, people, or streets. The environment is purely energetic, shaped by the soul's vibration. It's common for it to perceive itself floating in luminous spaces, connected to subtle presences, sometimes described as beings of light, mentors, archetypal consciousnesses, or even as the divine spark itself. These encounters don't happen through words. Communication is telepathic, direct, silent, and more powerful than any human conversation. The soul feels understood without needing to explain, and above all, it feels accepted. Here, love is not a feeling, it is a state. It's at this point in the journey that many souls remember their original purpose before birth, before choosing that body, that family, that mission. Some are surprised, others recognize with gratitude everything they lived through, even the pain, because it was the pain that awakened dormant layers of the soul. This is the space where the ego finally begins to dissolve. The soul understands it was not the character, it was the actor, and the stage of life was a lesson, a training, a temporary dive into forgetfulness, so that now, in the realm of consciousness, it could remember who it truly is. After the expansion of the realm of consciousness, the soul begins to feel that it is being led towards something greater, something no longer chosen with words, but with vibration. On days 25 to 27, the journey reaches a point of convergence. The soul prepares to move on to the plane that corresponds exactly to what it has become. This stage is described as an energetic tuning. There is no imposition of a heaven or hell. What exists is the law of resonance, like attracts like. The soul now vibrates at a specific frequency, built throughout life, intensified in the days after death, and now completely evident. Based on this vibration, the soul begins to be naturally drawn, like iron to a magnet, to one of the compatible spiritual planes. Lower planes, denser, where souls still strongly attached to ego, hatred, the desire for control, or the illusion of matter, reside middle planes, where evolving spirits continue their learning in spiritual colonies, healing centers, or hubs for study and reconstruction. Higher planes, more subtle realities where consciousness dissolves into universal love in missions of assistance, creation, or preparation for new incarnations with a clear purpose. But the most striking thing is that no one decides this from the outside. The soul itself, in light of everything it lived, places itself where it belongs. And this belonging is not punitive, it is coherent, it is mathematical and spiritual. It feels peace with the vibration it attracts because it is the frequency it built. Beings assist in the direction but never interfere with the vibrational choice. They merely show gently what is already clear. You are ready for this, or you still need to go through that. In some cases, the soul can still be helped. Rituals performed by family members, sincere prayers, acts of deep love from the living can raise the soul's vibration in the final moments before its definitive destination. The great lesson here is simple yet immense. You don't go where you want, you go where you are. And what you are is shaped in every daily decision, in every choice between love or fear, in every silent act. In the ancient manuscript, days 28 to 30 are described not as an ending, but as the final threshold. A liminal space where the soul stands with one foot already in the new realm and the other still sensing the earth it once knew. At this point, the soul already knows where it's going. It doesn't need to be told. It feels it. It resonates with the vibration of the realm that calls to it, like a tuning fork aligning with a specific frequency. And yet, these final days still hold a unique, sacred opportunity because the door hasn't completely closed. This is the moment when interference is still possible, not in a disruptive sense, but in a loving, grace-filled way. These are the days when spiritual help from the outside world can still make a difference. The soul, in this state, is semi-rational, open, and deeply sensitive to the energies around it. It may no longer hear our words, but it feels our intentions. It responds to vibration, to light, to love. That's why prayers, rituals, mantras, masses, and acts of remembrance have their most powerful effect during this window. The final 3 days are like the last seconds of a diver's descent, when the light from the surface is still visible but fading. If the pull of the depths is strong, so too must be the final push of light from those above. And that push comes from us, the living. This is not just wishful thinking or poetic metaphor. Ancient civilizations understood the power of this moment. In ancient Egypt, families kept candles burning for 30 days straight, believing that the light would guide the soul on its journey. In Catholicism, the tradition of holding a Mass on the 7th and 30th days after death isn't just symbolic. It corresponds with this precise spiritual window. In Spiritist traditions, these days are seen as vital when prayer and intention can still alter the soul's trajectory or bring comfort to one who is struggling to let go. And modern science may not yet have the tools to measure it, but countless near-death experiences and spiritual testimonies echo the same message. The soul still feels us. Even as it slips from this world, it remains sensitive to the love, fear, or pain we send toward it. Think of these final 3 days as a bridge of light. If the soul is hesitating, grappling with regret, fear, or sadness, our prayers can become the hand that reaches across the gap. When we speak their name with love, light a candle with intention, or simply hold their memory in peace and forgiveness, the vibration reaches them. They may not hear our voice, but they feel the resonance. The moment when the veil fully closes. On the 31st day, the passage completes itself. The soul enters the plane that matches its vibration, and there is no turning back. The transition is done. The echo fades. The door shuts, not as punishment, but as part of the sacred rhythm of existence. This is not a moment of sorrow, but of truth. Death is not the end. It is the harvest. The soul gathers the seeds it planted in life, and now steps fully into the field it cultivated. What awaits is not random, but earned. And so, for those of us who remain behind, the message is simple but urgent. Do not underestimate your power. Your prayers, your light, your love, they matter more than you know. In those final moments between worlds, they can ease pain, provide clarity, and even change the course of a soul's journey. Say their name, light the candle, whisper the prayer. You are not too late, not yet. Because love, even across worlds, still reaches. At this point, do you agree with us that we, spiritual beings having a physical experience in this beautiful world, are not merely human? When you look closely, everything in this world is made up of energy fields and vibrations. It's all part of one shared network that connects each of us to one another, to the universe, to God, and to the eternal source of energy. What's your perspective on this? How did this video resonate with you? Share your thoughts and experiences with us in the comments below. We'd love to hear your view. Thank you for watching. If this video opened your mind or helped you see reality in a new light, don't forget to like and subscribe to Top Hidden Knowledge so you never miss our next deep dive into mystery, perception, and the hidden workings of our universe. And if you have time, explore more videos on our channel. We're just getting started. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and never stop questioning the world around you.